Hey guys, this is Chris you're seeing here back from C&H Small Engine again for another informative review video. This one deals with a lawnmower I got here. We had a customer bring it over about 3 days ago, and he wanted the typical seasonal tune-up changeover, if you want to call it that, because he claims he hasn't had anything done on this machine in probably about 5 or 6 years. That's what he was telling me, because he basically just pulls out his shed, cuts the grass, and did virtually no maintenance to the machine, to say the least, right here for that. And it's a Toro GTS, or guaranteed to start, 6 horsepower, Briggs and Stratton engine on it. This is more of the we want to call it intermediary between the residential and the commercial line of machines. I believe these things were probably bought for probably about $400 or $500 back in 1998, because that's when this thing was actually made, because of the date code on the front of the Briggs and Stratton engine up above the spark plug on there for that. It's a 1998 Toro recycler, and I should say the unique thing about this is the recycler is on the actual right side of the deck, as opposed to simply having the bagger assembly in the back of the deck, because most of the newer ones, the recycler or the rear bagger assembly is in the back of the deck, where you have a big box, actually sticking up, like a big hump in the back of the deck back there, where your bagger actually hooks onto. Well, this one is on the right hand side, directly above the side discharge chute, as you see right there for that. And this one also has the prime button on there as well too. As most people know that they eventually did away with that, and they went to the automatic style chokes on there for that, because they don't want people priming their carburetors, because it tends to dump more fuel than necessary into the engine, which leads to higher emissions. And because of that, the EPA clamps down on stuff like that out there for that. So that's what it looks like on the side. And there's the rear bagger side discharge chute assembly, as they call it on here. And notice how it is on the side of the deck rather than being in the back of the deck, as most of the newer ones are currently made today. This one, as I said before, is more of a commercial line of machine here. For one thing, they do have a different style deck on here. You got different wheel designs on it too, and the actual wheels have held up quite well since he bought this thing. Like I said before, this is a 1998 machine, so the thing's about 18 years old basically, and overall it's still in I'd say pretty good shape out there for that. The one thing he needed done on here, basically, as I mentioned before, he needed tune-up done, and he also needed the drive cable up here fixed as well too. The drive cable is basically shot, as you see right there. It's basically broke right out of the handle up there, so that definitely needs to be replaced. The other thing that we also found on here, was even before we started up over here a couple days, was the oil was basically non-existent on the dipstick. Because you should always check your oil level prior to starting your machine anytime you use it out there for that, because it's always a good idea as an insurance measure to do that. And this guy had no oil on his dipstick. He had absolutely nothing on the dipstick. The only way we noticed that he had oil in there was basically we put it over on side to see if they can get some oil sloshing around down inside there, and he eventually only had, I'd say about 6 or 7 ounces of oil in there. It was well below the ad, and it basically was not even touching at the bottom of the dipstick at all, nothing. And oil was basically coal black in this machine, because apparently he had never changed it or added any oil to it in quite some time since his ownership from back in 1998. So that's basically the rundown of this specific type right here. The unique rear bag system on here. The rear bag on here is actually, I'd say, maybe about half a size bigger than the bags they currently make for the Toros out there today. So you can actually go longer distance. You can cut in your yard and stuff like that out there as well too. And me personally, I think the actual deck design is a little bit better than the newer ones out there too. Plus, you have the typical Briggs engine on there as well that basically cannot be beat. The 6 horsepower flathead engine is basically legendary in its reliability and keeping the machine functional for the duration of its lifetime. I think I also forgot to mention this one also has a fuel filter on the actual line itself down there too, so that's something you don't normally see on most of these engines out there. You can probably see it right there. It's a red Briggs fuel filter in line from the tank down to the carburetor, so it keeps the majority of most big particles from getting down inside the carburetor and clogging it up as well too. So I'll fire it up here for you guys. You can see it running, so bear with me here for a couple seconds here while I hold the camera in one hand, try to do a startup procedure here, so bear with me here. Just prime it up here. Yeah, we had to change the oil out about 3 times, and I forgot to mention that we had to change it out about 3 times just to get the oil to be coming up clear, because the oil is coal black. And you have to change that about 3 times in here because the sediment sludge tend to stay down inside the crankcase for the time after you do that. And it's always a good idea to start it up, change the oil, run for about another half an hour, 45 minutes, and change it out again, and until you do it about 3 times, and then that gets a majority of the crap out of the engine, to say the least. And anytime you do that, it's always a good idea to basically use diesel engine oil, because the reason I say that because diesel oil has a lot more additives and stabilizers and cleaning packages built into it, so it basically cleans up the internals of the engine a lot better than a gasoline oil does for most small engines out of that. So just keep that in mind anytime you got an engine that possibly has a lot of sludge in the engine for that, because it'll basically eat the sludge alive internally due to the increased additive packages and the anti-sludge and stuff like that actually build into the oil, as opposed to the gasoline engine oil for that. So let's get these things started here, guys, and see what it does. Choke a couple more times. 1, 2, there we go. Should fire up here. There we go. You do have to prime these things about 2 to 4 times out there, especially when they're cold out there. So it's running pretty good there. You see it running. Doesn't have any smoking, locking, or anything else like that. Running nice and smooth. The self-propelled doesn't work right now, as I mentioned before, because the cable is basically shit on there. It's broke. Other than that, everything else looks okay. I'll go ahead and shut it off here. Sounds pretty good to me for an 18-year-old machine right there. So that's basically everything I can really tell you about the machine. It has a muffler guard on her for that. It's basically broke out of there, and it needs to be rebolted back up on there. And I think that's probably about it for that. So if anybody has any questions, comments, whatnot about a machine like this, just drop me a message here, and I'll try to answer any questions you guys have about something like this or something similar to this. I'll see you guys, and have a nice day.